Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Zath's Replay Theater. In this battle, we have ChrizTahFah and his Nolans, and he's actually here with us right now. So, if you'd like to say hi, sir, go right ahead.
Hello?
Um, are you ready to go, sir?
Sure.
All right, so we'll hit the home key in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, home. All right, so what's your timestamp right now?
1954.
Perfect. We are about synchronized. Excellent. All right, so this is a tier 10 battle. You're in a tier 8 New Orleans. So maybe tell us a little bit about the ship, what's great about it, and weaknesses, all the good stuff.
Well, I guess as far as this ship goes, especially in tier 10 battles, the guns are kind of lofty. It's classic American cruiser. Can kind of capitalize on broadsides with the AP, but mostly you want to make use of its good detection range, so you can get the detection of the ship to down to 9.1. So especially in battles like this where you're outgunned, you want to make sure you're taking angles where you can get your shells over, but also break detection if you start taking too much fire. That's kind of the main point that you want to play around of the ship, because it's not very sturdy. It gets hit pretty hard. It doesn't have a large health pool. So it's one of those ships that you need to play pretty much as intelligently as possible in order to not get blown out of the water, pretty much.
Yeah, it is very easy to kill these things. So I'm looking at your camo is XP camo. You've got standard fire chance flags. I see commander boost flag, equal speed, Charlie London. So are you grinding this ship?
Yes, I was grinding this ship.
Gotcha. Okay, so you've got a good flag set up there.
Just try to get through it pretty quick. I enjoyed playing it for the most part, especially because you can kind of surprise destroyers in it, mostly because your detection is pretty much exactly the same as your radar range. So pretty much here I'm kind of trying to take up a firing angle where I can block line of sight to everything else, because you can kind of get over these islands and kind of just patrolling these
One
caps.
sec, Chris. I need to step away for a sec. So if you wouldn't mind, just take over, narrate a little bit about what's going on here.
Sure. So basically here, I try to block some of these caps from destroyers. Pretty much the gun range of the ship that is easiest to hit destroyers at is probably right around here, 12 kilometers or less, because the shells move so slowly. So I'm kind of just making sure our team gets control of these caps a little bit, and since that Fletcher kind of went off to D, there's not much else I can do to him, so I start turning back and paying attention to threats or potential threats, which are the two battleships in front of me. So I try to assume that spot that I'm in, that I was previously, in order to get shots on this Tirpitz while being relatively safe. I guess an important thing to note about this spot, especially considering that there's carriers, is you don't want to become too stationary in any cruiser, even if you're able or capable of shooting over islands being undetected, because it does sometimes take a while to get moving, and all it needs is one good shot to kind of take you out of the game.
Yeah, that's a good point, and I see how you're kind of when you're not coming to a complete stop, and you're not doing the typical reverse thing that you see cruisers do so often.
Right. The one big issue with reversing is that it takes a very long time to get started again, and good players will be able to tell by looking at the smokestack of your ship which direction you're actually going in. So kind of what happened here is, I guess, showcasing one of the weaknesses of the ship. So the angle relatively wasn't so bad to the Tirpitz, but it's just kind of got a weak nose and weak armor overall. So you will, every once in a while, take big hits through the nose, which is most of the damage that I end up taking this game. I just shot the AP there because I had it loaded anyway.
Right.
I got a little damage, but generally that's not the shell type you want to be using. So I tried line of sighting the Montana a little bit there, mostly because 12 guns, 16-inch shells that can overmatch your bow, which means that it can just, if it touches your bow, it penetrates. So I kind of just wanted to get out of the way there a little bit, and this plane is keeping me spotted, which kind of means that I have to play a little careful. So I zoom in at the Montana there to see the orientation of his guns, and I see that he's not really paying attention to me, because there is one thing targeting me, but it doesn't appear to be the Montana.
Right.
And now that he's kind of out of the way, I refocus. Now I see that the B cap is starting to go down a little bit here, and I see that there's nothing on it spotted, so most likely it's a destroyer. And I am being detected, and nothing's in line of sight, so I know that's probably the destroyer that's on the cap, and there he is.
Right, and if you look at the last known position prior to spotting him, it was definitely moving into V, so it makes perfect sense that you would, deduce that there would be a destroyer in there.
And I can kind of take a broadside angle to get more shots on him. Yeah, he got popped by that Yamato.
Yeah.
But there's nothing really threatening to shoot me, so I could kind of go broadside and try to take that gearing out, which is, I mean, you're using a tier 8 ship pretty much to remove one of their top tier destroyers, which is already a big impact in this game. So,
yeah, that's a huge threat, absolutely.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot you can do in bottom tier ships, even if you feel like you're kind of outgunned. So yeah, here's the spot that I was talking about before. Unless there's something directly on the B cap, you cannot really be spotted. So I kind of just get free shots on this Tirpitz here.
Yeah, that's nice. I
just whittle him down a bit.
And he's looking at you. He's waiting till you get spotted.
Yeah, he's waiting till I got lit, and the planes finally went. And I got a little greedy by backing up and trying to get on him, but I was pretty comfortable with the fact that I wasn't getting spotted. And now, even though he was looking at me, he kind of more or less lost his shot because he's so far behind that island now. And right. I follow my shells there by hitting the Z key, mostly to check the angle of his ship so that I can make a better lead on the next shot. Another way of doing this, actually, cool tip, is if you hit the map key, like really quick, just twice, it gives you a little bit of a top-down view, which is another way of kind of making use of checking the angle of ships.
And for those of you guys who are watching, if you want to see an example of that, my third video of the gearing featuring Blazor Muser, she does that in her replay. So if you want to see that demonstrated, hop on over to Zath replay number 3, and you can kind of see how that works.
Yep. And
so
I swapped AP here because I saw his angle, but he died before my shells got there.
Right. One thing I'm noticing is, I mean, you have defensive fire, and you might, I mean, it's a midway, right? So you're probably not going to shoot down too many planes.
Well, there are tier 8 planes now, so you can do a little bit more.
Good point. So why aren't you then staying close to, like the Yamato that just went down and stuff like that?
Well, pretty much, I'm just trying to keep them from taking the B cap. But the other thing is, the Yamato has a lot of range. I don't. I kind of want to stay a little bit closer to islands. And my AA range is only 5 kilometers. So the amount that I can impact the game, like, sure, maybe I can help out a Yamato a little bit. But overall, the impact that I'd have on the amount of planes that he kills, because, he has tier 10 anti-air. I have tier 8 anti-air with only 5 kilometer range. I can't really help him that much unless he comes closer to me, because if I get caught out in the open, I just have to stay dark the whole time and get spotted by planes. It kind of makes it rough for me as a player. But pretty much me just being out where he wasn't in a great spot. He's cross-fired by Yamato, Montana, and the flanking ships at A. So even if I put myself there, maybe he takes 10k less from a midway drop, but he dies, and then I'm in a much worse spot. So I kind of took a peek at whatever our Montana's doing, and you saw that he was kind of hugging our midway, which, don't do that. That's he still has full health, and he's just hugging the midway. So yeah, don't do that.
Yeah, it's like he's just I think he's had one too many drops from bombers or something, right?
Right.
He's just,
He's not very useful.
no,
But yeah,
unfortunately.
anyway, here I saw the smoke. I saw I was close enough. I'm trying to take out the Fletcher, which ends up happening. I kind of pretty much the range that you don't want to be any closer in. Well, it's all obviously dependent on the comfort of each player, but I generally, to battleships that like in cruises that I don't have very good armor in, I don't really want to get any closer than like 11 kilometers, which is why I made my turn there. A little bit risky, but I kind of felt comfortable enough that the Tirpitz doesn't really have great accuracy. So what I saw there while I was shooting at the Baltimore, I saw the Tirpitz shoot, and you kind of can make your turns based on when they shoot. And that shot he actually bled pretty nicely, but so I ended up taking a little bit of damage through the stern there. But generally speaking, you should be able to get pretty good dodges on these guys.
Yeah, the
I see
New Orleans
this
is
time.
very maneuverable.
Yeah, it's a very, very nimble ship, which is really what you have to play off of in order to make it work. But yeah, I see the Tirpitz no longer looking at me, so I can give him broadside and cut off the angles of the Yamato, which is kind of more of a threat at this point.
Right.
But the Tirpitz just killed our Donskoy, which he was looking at, so next target is
back to you.
probably me, yeah. So I see that, I'm starting to get a little bit too far from him and maybe take some damage. So I turned in because I was expecting him kind of just maybe sail a little bit more away to be like afraid of our Montana a bit more. But he kind of comes back at me. So what happened when he fired the shot was I was turning away, but then due to like quick rudder shift of the New Orleans, I decided that I would have been too broadside by the time the shots got there. So I turned in, and as you saw, the shells landed very wide.
Yeah, you got under the shells.
Me. Yeah. And then here on this one, I didn't really want to get too close to him, so I turned outwards, and his shells landed a bit short. He misled it, but at the same time, like it's just a dodging pattern. It's not very easy to hit. And one thing it's very, very hard to implement, but if anyone's ever played like outfield in baseball, you can kind of tell the trajectory that the ball is going at. And you can do that with battleship shells outside of 10 kilometers, which is why I try to like sit there. Because you have enough time to make a decision where the shells are going and actually just straight up weave in between them. And it's something to look out for, because you should be able to tell if the shells are going to land to your left or to your right. Height is a little bit harder to tell, but you can kind of bisect your screen like in half in both directions, and you can see like if the shells are coming straight at you, you only see the dot, right? But if they're going at an angle, you can kind of see a little bit of the side of the shell, so you can tell a little bit which side it's shading towards, and you can make an intelligent decision about your turn and your speed from that. So for a lot of these turns, when I'm like turning in or away, sometimes I'll cut my speed really quickly so that even if they led properly or they predicted the turn, they'd still more than likely come up a little bit short. So at this point in the battle, it's starting to get really risky, since I'm the only one who's being kind of useful. Our Montana's doing who knows what. And I've only got 11k health to work with. So I took my shots at the battleships because they weren't really paying attention to me, but now that they're looking at me, I'm kind of just going to play with my detection until, they start forgetting about me again. Because maybe one at a time, I'd be comfortable dodging the shells, but you can't guarantee that they're going to be firing at the same time, So it's much better to just take a better position, take this a little passive. We don't desperately need that cap or anything. So I just want to make sure that I keep myself alive.
Right.
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, and that Montana shell just came in and did a little bit of resetting too for you.
Yep. Yeah, but ultimately not my biggest concern. So I zoom out here because I want to see if both of these battleships fire, then I can take my shot and go dark in time.
And for those of you guys who are wondering, that's because he has 20 seconds between shots, essentially. where he is going to be spotted at his max fire range. So the battleships have longer than 20-second reload, which means that if he fires right when they both fire, neither of them can shoot him before he disappears again.
Right. And I was also running away a little bit there because the Montana was charging. So when I looked at that Yamato, I saw that his front two turrets weren't looking at me. But I will admit that I wasn't really considering the back turret, which kind of surprised me a little bit here.
There it is.
Staring right at me.
Whoops.
But yeah, I can, you just do your turning. I saw that the majority of the shells were kind of just falling on that side, so I make sure. What you can't tell in the recording really is that when you make your turns, obviously the side of your ship will swing out in a direction. If you kind of want to reset your rudder back in the other direction so that your ship straightens out, so you present a lower profile. Because even if you're turning the proper way away from the shells, like you saw I straightened out there, if I let my ship like at that previous angle, I may or may not have eaten those shells purely because, I wasn't like a slimmer profile.
Mm-hmm.
So end up taking down the Yamato there, and this Montana not really paying me any mind, so kind of start opening up at him. Yeah, and he's taking midway torps. So yeah, he's not paying attention to me, so I start turning back in to make sure that I stay in gun range.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, pretty much just doing the normal thing. So now I see that I got priority target locked, which is that little number 1 up there. So I know that he's started aiming at me.
And you're firing AP into him now. Why?
Because he's pretty much completely broadside, and he's already got 2 fires on him. So the benefits of HE is somewhat lessened. But if I hit him in the superstructure, which I would be doing if he didn't slow down, you can get much bigger hits, like even 5 over pens.
Yeah, that was still 5K.
There. But I go back to, you're right, I go back to HE there because he's so low.
Right.
And also same thing with the turn. I lowered my speed and turned because obviously if I'm going broadside to him, he's going to lead in front of me. So I cut that off. So what happens here is I see that the Midway has outturned me with his planes. So I start going back in the other direction, right? So
oh boy.
It was really close, but general rule is you want to turn towards the planes because you have a chance of creating a dead drop, which means that the torpedo doesn't arm in time, and you can actually just run into it and it won't explode. But once you start getting, once they start turning too far around you, you end up broadside to them again. So because the rudder shift is so short in this ship, I was able to just shift and go back the other way, and make the drop parallel to me, which allowed me to dodge it because torpedoes are not very fast.
Right.
Here, pretty much, it's kind of game over. So I just kind of go and chase those planes and hope to get a couple plane kills for the XPs. But yeah, that was pretty much that.
Yeah, so I mean, it's even though you're bottom tier, you're still alive, first of all, which I think is something that needs to be said. And second of all, I mean, you've done a decent amount of damage, 122k.
It's not a huge game, but a good 10, 15k of that was to destroyers.
Well, right, and you sorry, go ahead.
Right, you can easily make an impact with a bottom tier. I mean, not much you could do there. Didn't
time
have
extension.
Fire. Yeah, time extension. But basically, you can survive and be useful with low health. You don't have to run away from the battle or, play, or not play the game because you're bottom tier in a ship that's not, super powerful for its tier. It's a good ship if played right, but it's not, it's not like an Iowa or something like that. I guess like an Iowa would be an example of something really good at its tier.
Right.
But you can take fights with ships if you can pretty much you just have to be aware of when they shoot. And after, no matter how good a player is, after they've shot their guns, they have no more influence on where their shells are going to land. So that's something really important to make note of, like regardless of your tier, that you can still impact the game with any amount of health because of that, pretty much.
Absolutely. And so I've slowed the game down. Your game's probably ended on your side, but
Yeah.
I've stopped the game right before the midway takes these torpedo bombers, and so I just kind of want to point out for those of you guys, if you're looking at the mini map, basically ChrizTahFah was staying south of the BC island, and you were doing an awful lot of maneuvering out there. And I do apologize, I had to run for a second, but thank you for walking through that part. But you know, you were definitely staying mobile. You were definitely staying behind cover, which is something I see an awful lot of cruiser captains do wrong. And I think the most important thing was at the end with those two battleships that plowed through B. You didn't give up, and you didn't just keep shooting.
Right. Because you're not going to outgun them. You're not going to out DPS them. Basically, with that amount of shells coming at you, no matter what kind of maneuvering, you're probably going to end up taking one or two. And, with only 10,000 health left, one or two might be it. So, you kind of just have to figure out when it's going to be safe to fire and where you're going to be safest to fire from.
Right.
So use that detection range, make sure they can't see you, and then get to a safe spot.
Right. Absolutely. And so many people do wrong with cruisers in general. Just in any ship, really. Just because you have the shot doesn't mean you should take the shot. And I think that's something that a lot of people need to work on. I need to work on sometimes myself, even.
Yeah, it's hard to get past the greed sometimes, but it's something. Even I was greedy with some of those shots. Like the first one, when they first started getting in the cap, they were both looking at me, but I took the shot anyway. Like I kind of was a little greedy there, but I thought my angle was good enough, and maybe I'd be able to survive the 20 seconds to go dark again, which I was. So
Yeah, that worked out. I mean, hey, you won. You survived until right at the end there, when I mean, all you could do is pray to RNGesus even harder.
pretty
So.
much, yeah. I mean,
Awesome.
can't do much about those planes, but is what it is. Yep.
All right, well, ChrizTahFah, I want to say thanks for joining us in here for the replay, and I really do appreciate you walking through the game, because that definitely helps to explain things from a different perspective. So thanks again.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's no one knows what they're doing better than the person who played, right?
Exactly. So
anyway.
I've played the battle, and now we're gonna watch. I guess the midway explode, or is time gonna run out here? It looks like time's gonna run out.
Yeah, got pretty close. The other midway got a good drop on him. Hit him with pretty much everything.
Hot midway on midway action.
Something like that.
All right. Well, thanks again, and for the rest of you guys, I appreciate you tuning in, and do all the YouTube things, and send me replays so I can feature them. And if you want to talk through something like this, let me know. If there's something you want me to focus on, let me know. I'd be happy to do so. All right. Have a great day, everyone.